This course is presented to you free of charge by TTJ Tech Services of www.ttjtech.biz and by Stir It Up of www.stiritup.com. And remember, stir is spelled with a U, not an I, so that's STURITUP.com. TTJ Tech Services and Stir It Up are pleased to offer this course to you, to the glory of God, and to the benefit of all those who listen. And amen. Well, praise God and welcome to Voiceover In and Out. This is our Wednesday experience lab, and we're very excited to have you. We're going to get right on into things today, and I'm so excited to welcome a special guest with us for a spotlight interview today. The purpose of these experience labs is to show you the kinds of things that we can do with our devices, how technology makes things possible. And so instead of step-by-step instructions, we've been taking our Wednesday lab time and demonstrating how we, for example, create a grocery list and organize recipes, how we book trips using Safari and various websites or other apps like hotel apps and so on, and how all kinds of different things like that we've been doing. And we have a couple more to come before the end of this class as well. But we also like to highlight other people who are doing the same things, who are using their Apple devices to run their business, to enhance their lives, to overall just make things easier for them. And I am thrilled to welcome today John Panarese of Mac for the Blind. John has been and continues to be a great friend of ours, and really a great partner in a lot of ways, because we're all working toward the same goal, and we're all working to help others to learn and to understand the power of these devices, to empower people through the use of this technology. And John is 100% on board with that goal. He's got a fantastic company, Mac for the Blind, and he offers just absolutely excellent classes and training. People love the work that he does. People have learned so much from John, and they continue to look to him as a mentor and a resource in this business. And so we're thrilled to have John with us today. And really, more than anything, I want to talk to him about how he got into this business and how he uses the technology every day. And I'll start out as we, always teach people a good way to start any interview, that age-old, rather vague, and yet so important question. Tell us a little about yourself.
Yeah, that's always the first question that's asked.
Right.
So, as Matt introduced, my company is Mac for the Blind. I have been a trainer and consultant probably since around 2010, 2011. Obviously focusing mainly on Apple products. I mean, I've been in this industry since 1993. Wow. I used to sell products under Technologies for the visually impaired, and I was a distributor for various overseas companies such as Index Braille Printer Company, and Portset Systems, Robotron, etc. So when I got out of the business, of course, my phone is going to start ringing. Hold on.
Call from 63126.
So in 2010, I closed the business when it really appeared as though the blindness industry was sort of imploding. And to be honest with you, I think Apple had a lot to do with it, regardless of what people were saying at the time. I think for me personally, the handwriting was on the wall as far as all of the blindness vendors were sort of circling the wagon. And I was fortunate enough to be involved with Apple Accessibility really by chance. I met people from Apple in 2005 at the CSUN convention in Los Angeles, thanks to my dad, literally bringing a couple of them over to my booth at the time. So when I got out of selling, I was actually going to go back to school and find something else to do. And a friend of mine kind of convinced me to put up macfortheblind.com, which I did. And then he sort of nudged and urged and cajoled me into putting, a blurb on the website that I could offer training and teaching of Apple products. And my response to him at the time was, I'm not a teacher. I don't teach. Even though realistically, when selling products for 18 or some odd years prior to that, you obviously teach people how to use those products. And I was actually doing some private iOS and Mac training at that point too. So I kind of reluctantly did it. And the next thing I know, I was getting contacted by state agencies and private clients. And it's kind of rolled into what it is today simply by circumstances, and a lot of instances, my relationship and connections with people inside of Apple, having gotten to know state agency people and stuff when I sold products, and then obviously getting involved with the blindness community and people like Matt and Cliff. It's just all been a great experience for me, and I just enjoy teaching, and B, just giving back to the community as much as I can, because you always have to remember where you came from.
Absolutely. 100%. Very well said. And, John, I have to resist the urge to get into the discussion because you've seen it all. You've been through a lot of it. You've been there for it. And so it's so easy to get into that conversation with you about all of the really horrible myths and rumors and all the bashing that people do of Apple and how untrue that stuff is. And I love having that conversation. And you and I have that every couple of years. Unfortunately, we only have the pleasure of your company till 3 today, so we got to keep things moving. So I have to force myself to resist that that urge, but and instead to focus on how do you use, as I said in the beginning of this, we started these experience labs because, as you could sit down and teach people, for weeks on end. Well, this is how you do this. Step 1, touch this icon. Step 2, swipe your finger. They're only going to remember a portion of that. And, so what we've decided to do with these Wednesday sessions is to just demo. I take a website, like I said, booking a trip. I go into the IHG app and I demonstrate that and let people hear what's possible. So my question to you is, what kinds of things do you do on a day-to-day basis in your personal life and in the business, what have you, using these Apple products, things that people might not even think about that they can do with their Apple devices?
Well, I really started running my business entirely. Even when I was selling products around 2008, I started to really shift everything over to the Mac because everything started to become accessible. The Apple ecosystem, for, the criticisms that some people give about Apple, you're stuck in the Apple, I think it's a great thing. And for me personally, everything from like my calendar, I can add events, I can, check events, I can reschedule all from any of my Apple devices. It doesn't matter whether I'm sitting here in front of my Mac Mini or I'm out someplace and I use my iPhone, or I'm upstate in Buffalo at my brother's using my MacBook Pro. I have access to all of my business stuff. I use iCloud Drive. I pay for the extra storage so that I can have access to all of my business files, all my client information, all my personal information. I use the Mac for reports. I have to turn in state agency reports at the end of every month. Do invoices. Sometimes private clients want invoices because they get reimbursed by work or whatever. So I'm constantly using the Mac to keep track of contacts, add new clients, be able to reach out to people at any time just by saying to our good friend, SIRI, can't say it because I'll have 3 or 4 different devices going off here. So, to me, I just use the Mac, especially online. I look stuff up. it's one of the funny things. It happened to me this morning working with someone where they ask you a question and I don't have an immediate answer, but I can because I have one of my earbuds plugged in, so they don't even know I'm in front of the computer. I can do a quick search online, get an answer for them, and just give them the information within 30 seconds to a minute using Safari. And it's not that I'm showing off or anything like that, because I tell them I looked it up. I don't lie to people. I'm not going to make up stuff and say, yeah, I know everything. But it just it's a real comfort to me that I can make have that ability, just to be able to look something up and give somebody feedback immediately that would normally, I might normally in the past have said, okay, next time we meet, I'll answer that question. So there's just a lot of major things and a lot of minor little things that you take for granted sometimes, that Apple products, for me, ever since 2007, 2008, have really become an everyday part of my life. I mean, I still have to teach Windows. It's part of a couple of my contracts, but when I get back to sitting in front of my Mac and just being encompassed in the whole Apple ecosystem, it just makes me very glad that I, intellectually and emotionally chose to make that switch back in 2008. So I couldn't. I mean, I could go on and on just raving about Apple without, but at the risk of sounding like the quote unquote Apple fanboy people accuse me of being.
Well, I'm in that same boat, and when people accuse me of it, I say, yeah, absolutely, you're right, but they've earned it.
Yep.
And so absolutely we could. But I really like the fact that you talked too about being able to look these things up in Safari, whatever they might be, whether it's how to do things in technology or anything else we might use Safari for, or YouTube videos. I mean, the ability to look stuff up is almost more important than learning the step by step, because if you can look it up and then turn that into something meaningful, you really are it's almost limitless what you can do. Um, John, can you give us a few examples of the apps, whether they are Apple or third party, either way, that you use for certain, like you mentioned, having to do reports, having to do invoices. And of course, I have, my list that I'll share with the folks in the coming weeks too, but would like to hear what ones you're using.
Well, for my documentation, most of the documentation I do, believe it or not, I use TextEdit. I know everybody loves to talk about Pages, Microsoft Word for Mac, etc. Good old-fashioned TextEdit does everything I need it to do for the most part. On occasion, I will use Pages for certain formatting stuff for people, for certain agencies that request it. My invoices are done through a numbers template spreadsheet that I created. I just grabbed
Wonderful.
one of the invoice templates that Apple offered. I just converted it into, my own personal invoice. I use the calendar app on both the Mac and iOS every day. Obviously, the contacts application. Apple Mail, I don't bother with any web interface. I hate Gmail's interface, for example. My old cable company's interface was just a nightmare to try to use. I'll check iCloud email once in a while online, just for the sake of practice and keeping, that skill set up. But realistically, Apple Mail on the Mac and the Mail app on the iPhone, I have 8 accounts. So people who say, oh, but you can't do Outlook on Apple Mail, or you can't do Yahoo, or you can't do, that's nonsense. You can
That's
set
right.
up an Outlook account. You can set up any account, including off the beaten path, like my business account, or, the, cable, my Opt Online address, that stuff. It's very
Right.
easy.
Right. And really, Apple on the iPhone now truly has brought Apple Mail up to where it is on the Mac, as far as being able to, you've been able to create mailboxes for a while, but now also create your aliases, manage lists of contacts, or, groups, if you want to call them that, whatever but all of that can be done even on the iPhone. And it's interesting you mentioned the cable companies, because we have Xfinity, Comcast, and I have a lot of respect for Comcast because they know when to push forward aggressively and they know when to draw back. And the mail is one of the perfect examples of that. For years they had a webmail interface. Yes, you can still go to xfinity.com and check your email, but they say right on their website, for the best experience, use your mail app. I mean, they come right out and say that now. So I have a lot of respect for that because people realize
true.
It works. Yeah.
It's true for any provider. I don't care whether it's Yahoo, Gmail,
right,
Outlook. Use Apple Mail. It's pointless to me to use web interfaces or get a specialized Gmail app. Or sometimes I get people that say, well, work uses Outlook, so I have to use Outlook. No, you don't.
No, you don't.
As long as you have your credentials, you can set up your Outlook account through Apple Mail. It handles the EWS, Exchange Web Service Protocol, so it's fine.
That's right. Can you point out something in your business or in your life that, technically speaking, has been the biggest challenge from an accessibility standpoint, that it's just been a struggle to get this to work without sighted help or what have you? Is there anything that stands out in your mind in that regard?
At this point, the only once in a while where I need somebody with eyes is sometimes inaccessible websites. And that has nothing to do with Mac, Safari, Voiceover, etc.
It's just the way the sites are coded.
It's just the site developed. It's not, something you have to either work around it or just not deal with it.
Right.
And that's really, I mean, the third-party apps have come a long way. A lot of the stuff that I just do on my most of the apps I do, like Amazon, the TV app, my History Vault app, all that stuff is so accessible now through iOS that I really don't need sighted help to give me a hand with anything.
Absolutely. One of the biggest recurring questions we get is, about OCR, but of course now that is really even built into iOS. I mean, they don't necessarily use the term OCR. I guess they don't want to make that claim, but your text recognition, your scanning text, from images, and it actually makes it searchable. And then the other question that we get is about, like, filling out and signing PDF forms, which now you're supposed to be able to do that in iOS 17. I will admit that I've not played with it yet to the extent that I need to really be confident in it. But have you had to do a lot of that, and how do you do it?
I haven't had any PDF. Like I usually, if anything, I've been using DocuSign. Because they have accessible document signing. That's most of the things that I've had to sign in recent years has been done through DocuSign.
Right.
I haven't played with the PDF stuff much. I really want to, because it's a question that I'm also asked quite a bit by people.
Right. Well, maybe we'll both play with it on different, you on the Mac and me on iOS, and we'll confer, But I mean, I personally, just in the spirit of full disclosure and transparency, I wish PDFs would be done away with. I think that, you want to talk about monopoly and all that nonsense that the government tries to say. I think that is ridiculous. I don't think we need PDFs in any way, shape, or form. DocuSign is a great alternative and a much easier one, but hey, nobody asked me what I thought.
And it's also because there's no like you can create PDFs in a million different ways.
That's right.
And their accessibility is always going to be based on how that PDF was formatted. If it's an image PDF or a text PDF, there's too many variables that from an accessibility standpoint. And people will say, oh, JAWS has the on demand, the OCR, or whatever they call it, the layered commands. It still is far from the solution.
Absolutely. Last question that I have, and then in the few minutes we have left, I'm going to open it up to the audience. But what advice would you give to somebody who says, John, I want to do this. I want to use my Apple devices for everything, run my business, run my life, but I'm just not there yet. I don't remember it. I struggle. Sometimes I turn the rotor and it doesn't work. sometimes I do this and it doesn't, and in their minds, their phone isn't cooperating. What advice would you give to them to go from that point to kind of the point where you are?
Patience and what I like to call with my clients being task specific. If you find the overall struggle with the Mac or iOS in a bunch of areas frustrates you, what I would suggest doing is not trying to eat the whole apple in
You are
one
the
bite.
co-host now.
You
Right.
want to take everything in small bites and focus on a specific app, and then you just kind of tackle it one thing at a time, because what you'll notice on the Mac and iOS is consistency. So if you learn to use a specific app, the skills will transfer over to other apps. You just need to learn, the specifics of that app. But in terms of the voiceover skills, everything carries over. And that's what I love about Apple. It's just that you're always finding things to kind of be the same in how you do things.
Excellent. Wonderful answer. Do either of you have any questions that you would
Sarah
like
Potic
to
is the co-host
ask
now.
John in the next few minutes?
Well, I taught John everything he knows, so I don't have to ask him
I knew that was coming. I knew that was coming.
No, John's been my mentor for years, and I mean, the only thing that I would add to somebody like that, if they're coming from a Mac or a PC to the Mac, and coming from an Android to an iOS, is you got to throw that Android or that PC out the window. Not literally, but what I did when I first got my Mac is I sold every PC that I had. I never touched an Android, so that wasn't an issue. But you got to get that stuff out of your realm so you're not tempted to go back to it. And then, like John said, take one bite at a time. Tackle pages.
Absolutely.
Then go to text
Absolutely.
edit. Then go to mail. Then go to messages. Don't try to do them all at the same time. You got to master it one app at a time. And I completely agree with the mail app. I mean, I got 10 accounts also, and I use them all in the mail app on my phone and on my Mac. And the other thing that I will point out is it's actually easier to manage your mail app on the phone now, based on the fact that all that stuff built into settings. Because on the Mac, you actually still have to go to Safari. You can't do all that stuff actually in the mail app or settings. But on the phone, you go into settings, into iCloud, and you can do everything right there: aliases, rules, creating
That's right.
mailboxes, and you can
Yeah,
even
it's
tell
great. It's accessible.
exactly.
And it's
That's the
accessible.
important
And you
thing.
can even
Absolutely.
tell, some people don't know this, you can even tell your mailbox trash how often you want it to empty. So, I mean, you can do all that stuff from the phone. So,
it's so refreshing to hear. I mean, I know Matt does and Cliff does, but it's so refreshing to hear the positives on Apple. I go on so many podcasts and they're like just ripping it apart. And I'm like, you actually tried it? Have you actually like done anything on it? Or are you just like standing back and ripping it apart? And why?
and to
It's so
piggyback off
powerful.
of that, I use a PC every day for work because that's what pays me. And trust me when I tell you, when work is over and I clock out, I run to my Mac because it's just so much better. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying that
Yeah.
just because I don't like PC. I've been using Macs for over 12 years. I grew up on a PC, but
Right.
the differences is night and day. It really is.
And
I would like to come back on this subject at some point, just to deal directly with two things. Number one, this whole I did the Mac versus PC thing because I'm just over that. And the other thing is just dispelling these myths, because it really is starting to annoy me, the garbage that is out there. And as Sarah said, it really, I think, comes down to people who've just never tried it. They've never
Right.
really used a Mac, or they use it for 3 weeks. Oh, I can't figure this out. Well, how long did it take you to figure Windows out? I'm
Right.
sorry, nobody was an
Yep.
overnight prodigy when it came to that. It just
Right.
didn't happen.
Right.
So
Right.
I'd like to address that topic in more detail if you guys want me back.
I think we
I
should
can
actually
stand
do that
having
on a
me back.
podcast because
and
remember a couple
also
of years
and
ago
also
we did
the
that on
fact
a we did a podcast on that a couple of years ago. I think we should do a part two to it.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
we
definitely can bring you back. Let's do that. Let's have a session where we do exactly that and we dispel those myths and we discuss that classic debate of Mac versus PC. Well, we really thoroughly appreciate you coming, and we absolutely will have you back. His company is Mac for the Blind, folks. Please check it out. If you need any Mac training, anything in the Mac that TTJ offers is just a supplement to what he can offer. So please check him out. He's a great trainer. And John, it's been fantastic. We will have you back. Absolutely.
Thanks for having me, guys. You guys take it easy.
Thanks,
have a
John.
happy holiday for those of you who I'm not going to see.
Absolutely. You too. So,
and for anybody who goes to my website, I have direct links to his podcast, his YouTube page, and his website under my free resources page on my stiritup.com website.
Yes. Is he teaching iOS now too, or just?
He's always done iOS, but this year he's specifically doing Mac. He said he didn't.
That's what I thought.
He said he didn't want to reinvent the wheel because we were already doing iOS, so he stuck straight to Mac this year.
Okay.
And I have a lot of respect for that. I really, I think that's, what a wonderful nod that is to what we're offering too. But we're all in this together, and so we can always enhance. John's got his own style, we've got our style, but they all work beautifully together. And I think people have learned a lot from the combination of us,
And I think that brings us back to a lot of people who have this idea of these different organizations with them letters that I will not mention right now, but it's not a competition. If you work together, you can get a lot more accomplished and reach more people instead of fighting against each other of this is my belief and this is your belief. No, work together. Like John, he said, I'm not teaching iOS because TTJ is already doing it. I'm not whatever I don't teach in Mac, I'll help Cliff with and more with Mac in January. That's how you're supposed to work together, not say this is my belief and I'm going to make people believe this, so you should come over and join my organization. No, that's not how it should be. And I'm not bad-mouthing anybody. If that's how you choose to run your organization or your business, then that's completely up to you. But that's not how we do here stuff at TTJ, Stir It Up, or Mac for the Blind.
Well, and that's why it all does work so beautifully to work together. And I was happy to turn the primary Mac training over to Stir It Up and by effect to Mac for the Blind, because I don't use a Mac on a daily basis and I don't have any need to or desire to. The Mac is the best desktop platform in existence. I 100% believe that, but I use the iPad for everything. And so, but the other side of the coin is I wanted to stay up on the Mac stuff so I could offer some of the training and also to be able to help out, because I do believe God's given me a unique way of presenting things and teaching things. And I wanted to be able to contribute that with the Macintosh. And because of what Sarah just said, because they work so tightly together, it's so easy to go from an iPad to a Mac. If there were something that I felt I needed or wanted to pick up my Mac and do,
let me preface this with everybody knows that I'm just joking. But when Matt says he has a unique way of presenting stuff, he's right when it comes to iOS. But let me tell you what he did with the Mac. He asked me, he said, do you want to teach the Mac? I said, yeah, I'll think about it. I get an email that says, Cliff is now going to be running the Mac class. Do you want to sign up? I said, hold up. That ain't what I said. So he
that
just
may
threw
have been
me,
what you said,
he just
but
threw
it's
me
not
into
what
it. But no, he knew I would do it. That's why he did it. So.
Yep, absolutely. Well, look, in the time that we have left, because of course John had another client that he had to get to. So what I was thinking is to sort of continue along these same lines of discussing what we do and how we do it. And I wanted to start out with something that I promised you we'd do a few weeks ago. I told you it would be coming. And that's a sort of a what's on my iPhone kind of presentation. As I mentioned to you that they frequently do these on YouTube. A lot of YouTubers will do like a what's on my iPhone, what's on my Apple TV. And it's just literally going through the apps on their device and telling a little about what they do. And so I'd like for us as a team to do that same thing. I don't care if you don't necessarily have to literally read every app on your home screen, but maybe highlight some of the ones that you use, and especially some of the ones that we might not have thought of. Like, I think everybody knows by now that all three of us use the Apple apps extensively. We all use calendar, we all use reminders, we all use messages, mail, but let's look at some of the ones, first party or third party, that maybe people wouldn't think about and how we use them. So either one of you, Sarah or Cliff, want to start that, and then I'll go last as well.
Okay. You didn't mention the Notes app, which I'm sure you would have if you'd remembered, because I think we all use that.
We all, absolutely. That's yes, definitely.
And you can actually, John was talking about text edit. I'm like, you can use the Notes app for kind of a similar thing.
Right. And I think being that the Mac is his primary thing, that's where the go-to. And for those, for who you're using iPhone and iPad more frequently, Notes would be the way to go. You can still open text in Notes in a little bit of a workaround by copying it in there. And of course, you can open Notes files in Pages. So there's a lot of interoperability.
Yeah. So I have all the, of course, I use the calendar app, and I have never used another other than the Apple calendar. And I love the fact that I can, in an email, I can double tap on the date and it will just put it in for me, create a reminder or create an event, and it goes right into the calendar. So it's super. I mean, it all works together. If I'm going to talk about third party, I've got the Merlin Bird ID, which I love. It identifies birds, and from recording their sound, so you don't have to get a perfect picture of them, which gets you into nature without being able to, see the birds that are
I am
going to
have to try that, Sarah. That sounds like a really neat app.
It is super neat, and it's just gotten stronger. And it just, those times when they say, "Oh, look at that bird," and you're just left out because you can hear the bird, of course, but you get the description, you get, it's where it's native to, regions, et cetera, coloring, male, female differentiations, all that stuff. Anyway, it's fun. I have all my financial apps in one folder. So bank and charge cards, and I prefer Apple Cash, which once I was introduced to it, I couldn't stop. So things like Venmo, I would rather stay away from. PayPal, I would absolutely love forever to stay away from that. Did I make that clear enough?
Well, if you didn't, I'd be happy to join you in that chorus, Sarah.
I mean, how much frustration do I need in a day? Let's see. What else? Oh, Pages. I am an advocate for Pages. I really, really like Pages. If you're going to do any kind of serious documentation, essay, schoolwork, professional work, Pages is the Apple. I absolutely hands down would do that, because you can do anything with the, I think we've talked about it, but the formatting, the spacing, the structure, the so I just everything, which isn't available necessarily in text edit, which of course is the Mac, but you don't do that stuff. It's not there for that. So
right,
I love
right.
Pages. I love doing all the formatting and stuff, and it's very necessary for me anyway.
And I can officially say, because I now have a student who is a high schooler and is, because he's in high school, is required to use Google Docs. It's not really a choice. And so I've had to respect that because that's his authority that they're, and so I can play by the rules, and I had to respect that. And so I've been using a little bit for testing and experiencing him using Google Docs. And I can officially say what I already knew to be true. Pages is light years ahead of and way better than Google Docs and better than Microsoft Word, by the way, both from a functionality standpoint and an accessibility standpoint. And I think Cliff, being a Word user by force because of your job, you would agree with that too.
Yeah, it's powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, I did very well on a PC, with Word. That was fine. That was great. They're just incredibly different. It's just a totally different mindset. One is linear, one is not. And there's all sorts of, graphic things that I don't do, but there's the availability of, tables and graphics and importing pictures and stuff like that, and text boxes that are much easier, which those are things I don't do, but I do find that Pages is accessible and it's powerful and it looks great. So I've got all the apps for airlines, which makes it super easy for them to be in touch with me, for me to be in touch with them, to get alerts, et cetera, et cetera. Scanners, I have a scanners folder. I have like all sorts of things in there. What do I have in there? I have the Voice Dream Reader, which I've got the whole suite. And I love that because you can store a whole library in there. You can import, well, I'm sure people who are listening, probably a lot of people know this. You can import all sorts of things into that, including scanning and documents and what else? I'm not thinking. We've got Seeing AI in there. I've got, I don't know why I haven't. Oh, Inspector was a color app that I was using. It's okay, but quite frankly, Be My AI is better. It's more exact, and I have that too. It can tell colors like just right on, and and even get the text. Like a really difficult text to pick up on a scanner, it will pick up the text and read it to you exactly. I've taken up a lot of time, so Cliff, do you want to tell?
Hey, you're okay. Yeah, good. Yeah. Cliff, any apps that you want to give a shout out to that you use on your iPhone?
Nothing I really use that hasn't already been mentioned, except I mean, everybody's heard me talk about Infuse extensively, and we've already been over that one. But like Paramount Plus and the streaming apps that are all accessible, um, stuff like that. So I mean, I don't know. I use you and I both use Universe, which is a third-party app, but we're able to manage and create blog posts and stuff like that with those. Um, I use my work app that allows me to look at schedules, pick up overtime and stuff like that. The Universe app, which is the Bible app. So I mean, it's really nothing else. I mean, most developers these days are really doing a great job of following Apple's protocol of making their apps accessible. So there's really not much that has to be done. I mean, you might run into one here every now and again that doesn't do what it's supposed to do, and if you email them or reach out to them, they'll fix it. You just gotta let them know. Look, Apple has this guide on how to make this app work with the screen reader voiceover, and here's where you get it. You do that, and 9 times out of 10, they're gonna, make it accessible. So I mean, it's easy to do.
And the Universe app, which is the website builder and blogging app and so forth, is a perfect example of this because really and truly, you almost have to do something non-standard for your app not to be accessible. If you just make a basic app using the frameworks that Apple already provides, there's going to be a degree of accessibility
The only complaint
already
I have
there.
about that app is I think they could make it very easy for us to move those blocks ourselves, like we do apps. But that's just me. Maybe I'm just being picky. I don't know.
Well, they just released something, but I haven't played with it. I don't know if you saw the release notes.
I didn't actually.
Okay, one of the last two updates, they said they've added new voiceover rotor options to make it easier to move blocks. So I have not
Was there an
played with
email
it
on that?
since.
Because I actually didn't even see that. So
No, it was just in the App Store updates section because I never wait. I do my updates manually. Right. I mean, there's automatic updates are turned on, but I always just jump the gun and go in there. And it was in the, in the release notes. So it'll be interesting to see. But that's what I was going to say. Like they've gone above and beyond to add rotor options. And that's what you find in your Apple apps like Pages and stuff too, that they do. Well, of course, it's Apple, but they do. So, yeah, I agree with Cliff. The Universe app, the YouVersion Bible app, the TV apps, same thing, all of the normal TV apps from streaming services. And then, of course, in my case, the Xfinity Stream app, because we are cable TV customers too. So that one, and the Xfinity app itself, which lets you manage your Wi-Fi and your Xfinity mobile, data lines and all these things, and that, all fully accessible. These different restaurant apps, if you want to order Taco Bell or you want to use DoorDash, Uber Eats, both DoorDash and Uber Eats are supposed to be getting or already have live activity support, so you can see the status of your food order in the dynamic island. Now, DoorDash, it's just rolling out and it hasn't reached us yet. Uber Eats supposedly was rolled out, but I still don't have it. And when I Googled that, there are actually quite a few folks who say they still don't have it. So I guess it's just you have to wait and eventually it'll come. But that's nice to have the order tracking right there. Of course, the another category of apps is these payment apps. Of course, like Sarah, I use, and like Cliff too, I use the Apple Wallet and the Apple Card and Apple Cash whenever I can. I do have my banking app as well, which is accessible. I do use PayPal, even though I would prefer. Oh, were you going to say something, Sarah? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. I guess I was, well, okay, I'm going to interrupt.
What'd you say? I didn't hear you.
You can transfer funds from, back and forth. It's just so incredibly easy with the wallet.
Oh my, yes, it's super easy. I mean, that just it's so simple, so accessible. There's no extra fee, and that's what I was going to say. PayPal, I'm right there with Sarah. I really don't, I want to exercise grace. I know that,
if it ain't
God
Zelle
loves
Pay
those
or
people
Apple Pay,
too.
I don't use it.
I don't prefer PayPal. Now, I do have a PayPal because of the business. It makes sense to have it because there are some people that use it. So I can accept PayPal. I have Venmo. I have the Cash App. But my favorite one is, of course, Apple Pay with Apple Cash and Apple Card. Another set of apps that I have along those lines, I have the Square point of sale app, which I used to use a Square card reader. I don't even have to now because the iPhone itself can be a card reader with tap to pay. People can bring their credit card up to it and it'll accept it. And I have that app so I can do, invoices and so forth. And I also now have the QuickBooks app. And the difference between QuickBooks and Square is that QuickBooks charges you a monthly fee of $20-some a month. But the reason that I got it is because, by the way, they charge you that because there's a lot more to it than just invoicing. There's stuff that I probably will never use, or at least not in the foreseeable future. But the reason that I got it is because the Square interface, while it is fully accessible, while it does work, the front end of it for users can be a little bit convoluted at times. And so I thought, man, I always have to guide these customers through this process because it's not that simple. And then I received an invoice from somebody who did some work for us on a garage door. And that invoice was super accessible. I mean, it just was so simple. Like, I think a new user could have figured it out. And so I said, what is this platform that they're using? And sure enough, it was QuickBooks. So I signed up for a QuickBooks because of that, so that I can, send invoices that are easier for the customer, even if they're a Voiceover user to handle.
Can you get a lesser platform on QuickBooks? Like the
I
written
have
cost?
the basic, the least expensive one, which you have to have at least that to be able to actually do invoices and accept Apple Pay and stuff.
Okay.
So I think there are higher ones too, maybe, but there's, what else? I have some of the medical apps. Praise God, don't need them much, but I have the Doctor on Demand app, which is telemedicine. You can get your doctor visit right there, and our health system has an app. You can read your lab results and all that, and that's very accessible.
I love that. You can
Yeah,
find out anything and everything, from years
absolutely.
back.
Yes, absolutely. You can. Yep, exactly. Um, and of course, lots of shopping apps. Anything from Amazon, Walmart to Target to more specific ones. But and then the travel ones, like Sarah said, I've got the Amtrak app, the Fly Delta app, because Delta Airlines is the airline we typically prefer to use when we can. We're just now starting to plan our 2024 summer vacation. So I've been spending a lot of time in the Delta app and on Safari on multiple websites trying to figure out where our family is going to go. Everybody's got their opinion. We're leaning towards Cancun at this point, by the way, for anybody who wants to know, but that's not official yet. So we'll see what happens. I like these all-inclusive resorts that they have in the tropical destinations, though, because you pay one price that includes all your food, your room service, all your activities. I mean, you really can't beat that, but anyhow.
I think all three of us forgot to mention the weather app, which I think it's like the first thing I look at when I get up.
Oh, absolutely. The weather app. The weather app is great. I mentioned before, I don't know if it was in this class or another one, I do have the actual Weather Channel app also. And the only reason I got it is because it goes further out. So the native Apple Weather app is 10-day forecast, which is pretty much the standard in the industry. The Weather Channel happens to go like 14 days out or something. And when that really matters in Pennsylvania is like in the month of April and May, when you are just ready for hot weather, but like the next 7 days aren't going to go above like 48 degrees. And you want to get that little spark of what is coming. And if you look out far enough, there'll be a day where it goes up to 70 and you're very excited. So I like to have the extra days in there in the spring. Really doesn't matter this time of year. But, but the weather app, the native Apple Weather app, does everything now that we'd ever want it to do. It gives hour by hour conditions. It gives alerts for rain and snow and severe weather and all sorts of things. And
I live by the alerts.
Yeah,
because we have a lot of them up here.
yeah, it does a great job. And so does the weather widget. You can actually see right on the home screen. I have a widget that shows the current conditions. And if there is a severe weather alert, that will show up there too. So I don't even have to go into the app to see just the basics if that's what I want to see too. So yeah, it's a really good app. And, of course, while we're talking about the Apple apps again, the Books app, which I think we demonstrated in here a few weeks ago, is a really, really useful, really easy to use app. And it's certainly not the only one on the block. In fairness, Kindle is accessible, Bard. And I even had to read a book one time in this proprietary reader from a company called christianbook.com, because it's a book I really, really wanted to read. A guy was actually coming to our church to speak, and I really wanted to read this book before he came. And it was the only way I could get it was in that proprietary app. And so, I downloaded it. I think, Cliff, you've used that app too. It's not perfect from an accessibility standpoint, but I was able to use it. It's called, I think it actually is called christianbook.com e-reader or something. It's just specific to that site or to that, But Apple Books.
I can't believe that I forgot to mention Bard, because
you use that's Bard. That's right. So, and of course YouTube, which none of us really mentioned directly, but I mean, I use YouTube every single day. I have a number of channels that I follow. A lot of them are like Christian and Bible study, devotional type of channels. Some are, there are a few political ones, which I try to spend as little time as possible on them, but sometimes I do. And then a lot of tech stuff, a lot of tech channels where they're doing product reviews, smart home reviews, all of these Mac rumors and Apple Insider, and a lot of these tech companies and individual tech bloggers like iJustine and some of the other ones, and then of course some other things too. Occasionally, just some family singers or recipe YouTube channels and stuff. But it's amazing what you can find on YouTube, and I use it quite frequently, and I use it in a very robust way, meaning that I'm actually subscribed to channels, so I see when they release updates, and then I can comment on their videos and stuff like that, and all of that can be done from a free account. As much as I use YouTube and as highly as I think of YouTube, you would think that I have a YouTube premium account because I would support them in that way, but honestly, it is just I just don't see the need. I don't care about YouTube Music because I have Apple Music. I don't really care about background play because if I'm going to watch a YouTube video, it's just a personal preference thing, right? So I'm not nothing against anybody who is. It's not a criticism, but I am not a leave the TV on for background noise kind of person. I actually find that to be sort of annoying. I mean, that's probably overly dramatic. I'm not really that annoyed by it, but I kind of find it to just be like, why do you have that on for noise? If you're going to watch it, actually sit down and watch it. If you're not, turn it off. That's how I feel about it. So I don't just let YouTube videos play in the background. I'm either going to watch them or I'm not. And so I don't, the background play that comes with YouTube Premium just makes no sense for me personally. And of course, the other benefit to Premium is no ads. But I, just deal with the ads. If they're longer than 30 seconds, you can skip them after 5 seconds. So, I just haven't done a YouTube Premium. I did have it at one time, but again, those extra benefits just didn't seem, you can do all of that stuff with the free account, subscribe, comment, playlists, all of those kinds of things you can still do. So, YouTube is a great app. But again, we could go on and on. I'm sure there are many that I'm missing because I'm not.
Let's not forget how about the podcast app?
Oh yeah.
Which
Oh yeah.
I use all the time because I can get news there. I can get stories. I can get, just everything. I can get.
That's right.
Oh, there's this great group called the TTJ Tech, I think.
Oh, I've heard of them.
They're in there. They're in there somewhere.
They're in there somewhere. But the podcast app. And speaking of news, the news app itself, and now you have. I don't know if you have to have Apple News Plus to do this. You might, because I do have Apple News Plus. But the crossword puzzles, and they're accessible. I mean, I can't believe it. Now, I've never done the full big crossword puzzles. I do the small. They have a mini one, which they release a new one each day, and they have a full size and a mini. I've done the mini ones, but they're fun and they're accessible. And we've got some other games on there. I don't do a whole lot of gaming on the phone, but I do have some apps that we play with the kids and stuff, and some of them are accessible. You'll get a better feel because I have a lot more apps on my iPad than I do. Well, I shouldn't say more, but I have different apps to some degree. I don't just have a mirror of the same thing on each device. I kind of have, what I feel is the most relevant that I'm going to use on a particular device. And there's a lot of crossover too, but there's definitely some that are not. So, Be My AI, which you mentioned, Sarah. And of course, we had a conversation about this a week or two ago in class. I have such incredibly high hopes for generative AI. I think we're just seeing the beginning of what it's capable of doing. And I am really thoroughly anxious to see where it's going to go. There's a lot of rumors about iOS 18 getting a lot of generative AI in Siri and so on. And I'm anxious to see how that plays out.
What is the difference between Apple Cash and Apple Wallet?
So Apple Wallet is the app that stores Apple Cash, Apple Card, other credit cards, even boarding passes and coupons and your, Sam's Club membership, all sorts of stuff. Apple Wallet is just the name of the app and the interface where everything like that is stored. Apple Cash is a specific digital card that you are able to activate as an Apple user. And it is basically like, imagine having like somebody buys you one of those like Visa gift card kind of things, and you got $200, you can just use it the same as cash in a store. The Apple Cash card, when you activate it, of course, does not have a balance. It's just a zero balance, but you get cash in your Apple Cash card by one of several ways. If people send it to you through iMessage, if you use the Apple card every day that you spend money using the Apple credit card, you get Apple Cash. And the third way is to actually transfer money from your own bank to the Apple Cash card. So it's kind of like a like a Visa gift card, like those cash cards. And you can then use it with Apple Pay when you go into a store anywhere that accepts Apple Pay, either online or retail in person. And you can use it in lieu of a credit card or bank card or something, as long as it has a balance that is equal to or greater than what you need to spend. You can use that as a form of payment. So
If I wanted to give someone cash, I do it that way, or if I want to receive cash from someone.
Yeah, you could. So like if you want to give someone cash, it either then has to come from a positive balance on your Apple Cash card or from your bank account. It's the same, like when you use the Apple Pay cash option in the Messages app, for example, it's going to first look at your Apple Cash balance. If you want to send somebody $50 and you've only got an Apple Cash balance of $38, then it's going to pull from, when you set it up, you add up, a bank to it. It's going to pull the rest from your bank then. And there's no fee for that. They don't charge anything to do that, which again is different from that other company whose name I won't say, but it sort of, sounds kind of like PayPal.
But the other thing is, it will, when it comes up and you see, the Apple Cash doesn't have enough money, or you want more. It will come up with the bank account that you put in there, and you can only have one bank account in there at a time. So it'll bring up the one that you put in, and it will take it out of that bank.
Matt, to mention that Be My AI.
Yes.
Yeah.
What does it do? How do you use it?
So are you familiar with the Be My Eyes app, first of all?
Not very much. I kind of have looked at it every once in a while, but I don't really use it.
Okay. So you know what
I probably
it is,
should, but I don't.
Okay.
But you have it on your phone?
I do.
You already. Okay.
I think so. At least I think I do.
Okay. Yeah. So Be My Eyes, you can get live volunteers to help you identify, what the jar is, what the label is on the thing, whatever. And Be My AI is a feature of that same app. It's not a separate app. It's just recently become publicly available on a wide scale. And it is using what they call generative AI. And it uses artificial intelligence to identify whatever it is that you hold up. I will just do a demonstration of it here. Now, keep in mind, it's not perfect because generative AI is still in progress. This is always getting better. So they give you a million caveats the first time. Don't use it for life-threatening situations. Don't use it for medical. Don't use it for navigation, all these things. But it's amazing what it does do. So I'm going to go to my...
It might sort of like identify your toaster as your microwave, or whatever, which
right.
Who really cares? It's
you said something about it identifying colors, and it does a pretty good job. Is that right?
Yes. I had it aimed towards my shirt I had hanging up, and it told me it was like a blue and dark gray checked shirt, button up, and
wow.
it was just so exact.
Wow.
Wow. Well, there's none of the other apps I've ever tried that gives you color identification worth a hoot.
Yeah.
Not well.
I'm going to demonstrate this for you, Kay. I'm at my refrigerator, and I'm going to use the soda shelf. I'm going to see if it can identify the different kinds we have. Let's just try this.
Starting camera.
Okay.
Community. Tap. Do not disturb.
Now let's see what I have to do.
Dash F. Take picture. Button. Take picture.
All right.
Button. Tab bar. Take picture. Take picture. Analyzing picture. Please wait.
It takes a little while for it to analyze the picture. And apparently they are working on shortening that.
So you use your camera.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's already snapped picture. It's just analyzing it now.
Okay.
And we should have, here we go.
The picture is taken from a high angle looking down into a refrigerator door shelf. There are several items visible. A few cans are stored upside down, showing their silver bottoms with a red tab on the side, likely soda cans.
And that is true. They are stored upside down because that's how I know which ones are which.
The picture is below the cans. There is a white bag with blue and red text that reads Daisy Sour Cream. Next to sour cream, there is a green lidded jar with white text that reads Tostitos Salsa.
Tostitos.
In front of the salsa jar, there is a yellow lidded container, but the label is not fully visible. The background is slightly blurred, but it appears to be a kitchen with wooden cabinets. Take picture.
And now, first of all, that's
incredible.
That did a brilliant job. And the only one that it didn't identify was whatever that was below, but next to the salsa, which I could figure out by moving the camera. And then a lot of times they have
ask more.
Yeah, they have an ask more question, ask more button here. And I'm going to ask it.
Ask more button.
I'm going to say and it may not know the answer because of the way I took the picture, but I'm still going to ask. I'm going to say, what kind of soda is in the cans?
Inserted. What kind of soda is in the cans? Return.
And then
new line.
Whoop, I don't want to do that.
New line. Call a volunteer. Be my AI. Add picture. But message. Clear text. Send message. Button. Send. Please wait. Be my AI is writing the message. Be my AI. The image does not clearly show the labels on the soda cans, as they are upside down and the main part of the labels is not visible. If you need to know the specific type of soda, please provide a picture showing the labels or turn the can so the labels are facing the camera.
Isn't that amazing? Now
it is. Now, are you swiping your phone there to get to continue reading, or
some of it read automatically and some of it was in multiple lines, so I had to swipe. But I don't know if you noticed it because I kind of skipped over it pretty quickly, but there's a call a volunteer button there as well. So if you just not getting the information, let's say, it was pretty descriptive about how I could have gotten the names of the soda in those cans, but let's just say I couldn't figure it out and I needed some human to tell me, then I could call a volunteer and they could say to me, well, you gotta move the can down. It's too high. Whatever.
Okay.
So you always have that option to revert back to a traditional experience with a live volunteer. Have a great weekend, everybody. Take care and see you next time.
We'd like to thank you again for joining Voiceover In&Out 2023. Didn't get your question answered? Need additional training? Send us an email at support@ttjtech.biz or support@stiritup.com. And remember, stir is spelled with the U. That's STURITUP.com. I'm Trainer Cliff. Thanks for joining us and see you next time. God bless.